Okay, so I think we'll start with just some quick introductions. Obviously, we can see your names there, but not all of you have the university. So maybe we'll just go around, quick introduction of name and university and position, and then we'll get started into more esports type stuff. So I'm Adam Steeves, and I'm the senior manager of campus recreation at Waterloo. And I'll just go around to my right, I guess, and beside me is Greg.
Okay, I'm Greg Mittler, coordinator of sports clubs and camps at Waterloo.
How about you nominate somebody once you're done?
Okay, I'll go down to my side and Megan.
I think it's different orders on everyone's screens. Yeah. My name is Megan Locker. I'm at Brock University and I'm the intramural and community programs lead. So we'll go down to Chad.
I'm Chad Van Dyke. I'm the Director of Recreation and Active Wellbeing at Western University. Go Allison.
I am Allison Fisher. I'm at the University of Regina and I am the coordinator of student and youth programming. So that is children's programs, intramurals, sport clubs, esports falls under my intramural program, aquatics, and a little bit of marketing as well.
Gotta pick somebody
Zach.
else.
I'll send it to Zach. Zach's my student on the call, so he's running my esports for me, so he'll know way more than I do.
Hey, I'm Zach. I'm from the University of Regina, and yeah, like Allison said, I just do the esports stuff there for intramurals. And I'll pass it on to Andrea.
Hi, I'm Andrea Dietrich. I'm the fitness and training coordinator at University of Manitoba. Intramurals falls under my bubble for our satellite campus. We don't currently have an esports program, but I'm interested in learning how to develop one. So thank you. And then I have Blaine.
Hi everyone, I'm Blaine Hogan. I am the intramural program coordinator with the University of Alberta, and esports falls under our intramural program.
Okay, awesome. So I think one thing that's you can see even just from our small group here is a lot of different job titles with the esports interest right now. And it's the same at our university. Is esports kind of lives with us in athletics right now. But it's morphed over the last couple of years over from our Federation of Students area. And we're still really growing and developing and trying to figure out all that it entails and how big it can get. So I think a starting point right now might be to go around the room and find out kind of where esports lives on your campus, if at all. I know, Andrea, you said you were just starting, or you don't currently have a program, but are interested. But that doesn't mean that it isn't prevalent on your campus in other areas, whether it's outside of athletics and rec. So maybe just a quick couple minutes for each person where esports is, if it's in athletics or not, and kind of where your stance within the department is on esports. And maybe, Andrea, you'll be a good place to start. Just as you said, it's not with you right now.
So we're definitely getting a bit of pressure from our faculty to pursue the esports as an intramural program. We do have a very large student run group on campus who currently does it. And this past summer, I think, I was still laid off from my position at this time, but it sounds like while I was away, we did sponsor one of their events. So we kind of have our foot in the door that way to figure out how to perhaps run programs. But I think it'd be more beneficial if I talked to other university campuses and figure out how they run their intramural sports versus the student run club. So that's where we're at here.
How about you, Megan?
So there's a very kind of well-established student-run club with our students union, and then we've tried to kind of partner with them to offer intramural programming. So we've just stuck with like the sports-based games so far, because then the club does a lot of the kind of other games or other things. But just seeing kind of what other schools are doing and how to grow it. I know the club has talked to our athletics department, because athletics and rec is different, like separate at Brock, about then becoming a club under them or their competitive side versus then the kind of rec or more club-based ones. So yeah, currently right now, I would say mostly under our students union, that club, with them trying to offer some intramural programming.
Okay, great.
You have a 3-way tie.
Oh, just a sec.
With,
How about yourself, Blaine?
Biotech and cafe go in.
So at the U of A, kind of similar, we have a club sports esports group, and so they run their own programming. We work with them to promote our intramural programs, and we work with a company called GeoScore, and they basically manage everything for us, from registrations to the platform and to what games we offer, and then we just promote the leagues, but they do all the management for us. So, and then we also just coordinate with the club sports group to make sure we're not like overlapping on any of the games that we facilitate. And then they also help us promote. So
Is that all internal to your university, or do you have like competitive teams?
So the club sports group does have some competitive teams, to my knowledge. Our club sports coordinator would probably have a little bit more information on that, but I'm pretty sure they compete.
Chad?
Yeah, I'll maybe. So GeoScore also kind of works with the newly established Canadian Collegiate Esports League, the CCEL, and kind of helping facilitate that. But at Western right now, yeah, sort of similar to everyone else. We dabbled in it a little bit during the pandemic, but it was offering a lot of those just sport-based titles, and I'm sure we'll get to that discussion. They're not quite as popular as a lot of other games. So we do have teams that compete in the OPSE, the Ontario Post-Secondary Sports League, but it's like all these random dotted lines from our intramural coordinator that just helps with the administration logistics of it, but doesn't actually have direct oversight. But then similar to others, our student union on campus is looking to, we don't know where it fits exactly. There's pros and cons to living with both areas, but it's really looking at not duplicating certain areas. So I think our thought is we want to be involved in this game. We don't know what it looks like, but the fear is if we don't get in it, we're going to miss out. But it's also a lot of responsibility to take on and kind of take ownership for that too. So we're somewhere in the middle of most of the schools right now, I would say.
Okay, and Allison and or Zachary?
So we have a couple clubs that run out of URSU, which is where we stole Zach from. He was on one of those clubs. So we've had him kind of move over and help us kind of get ours going. We use GeoScore as well. We're also part of the CCEL. So we kind of do our gaming that way. Zach can talk more about like the details of what he does, because he does majority of it. But yeah, it lives, and the most part, like, because my sport club part of my job falls under our athletics department. So we don't have any competitive team at this point. And if they do, they'll come through me. So it works out really well that intramurals and sport clubs fall under me, that I can kind of dictate who's going what and doing what. So.
And Ian, I see that you just joined us. Maybe if you want to hop on and let us know where you're from and what your title is, and then a quick update on kind of esports on your campus.
Ian Munn, University of Calgary. I'm the supervisor of rec sports, so encompasses, well, rec sports like fencing, youth karate, those sort of things, and all the intramural programs. Have had a rough time trying to get esports up and running. But that being said, it's suddenly gained a lot of traction with on campus. The head IT guy actually got me in touch with a gentleman from engineering, and he's all for it. They're in the process of potentially building an esports lab for students. I have a meeting actually this afternoon, ironically, with a couple of the engineering student societies, and they're all for it. So we're going to have a tournament come January. So it's gained a lot of traction all of a sudden.
Awesome.
So, yeah. And our provost is a gamer, so that is potentially helping too.
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Yeah.
And before I turn it over to Greg, I haven't forgot about you, Greg. So it's great to hear kind of the different stages everybody's at. We At Waterloo, we've been at it within our athletics department for almost 2 years, and started out very much like, okay, we'll take it over from our student union federation of students and kind of run it like a club. And thinking a lot of the same things that have come up so far in this conversation. And it exploded so quickly, like in every stage of it, where we feel like, well, we've done quite a bit and we've advanced relatively far, and then still knowing that we're still at the extreme, like early stages of how big this is going to be. So before I turn it over to Greg with a little bit of an update on where we're at, I think one of the things, if not necessarily advice, but the idea that it comes out and thinking about, like, where does it live, and do we want to take it over from our student union, or do we want to have it live with us, or if it lives with us, what position would take it on? Take it into athletics, because it's going to create so many opportunities for student staff participation under athletics and recreation, and eventually full-time staff, branding for your university. Like, we can't believe how much attention we have been able to garner from this, and the fact that it lives with us has been really nice, and really a great opportunity for us, and the hope to develop full-time opportunities, develop full-time staff members and things of that nature. So Greg, if you want to give a little bit of an update on kind of where we came from and where we're at right now, and then we'll move on after that.
Yeah, for sure. So like Adam said, and like a number of you experienced, we do have, or had, a number of different esports groups that were underneath our student union that we tried to amalgamate, just because so many different groups are running as individual games as their club. We originally had the same sort of thought that, like, hey, let's bring it on, like, we'll focus on intramural recreation, whatever else from that. And for our cohort, that was not the right move. Like, that we found out pretty quickly that was not what a lot of the groups were interested in. Like, we still do have community programming and like weekend tournaments or whatever else, but our group is way more interested in being competitive. So what we've done with that, like, we're just to kind of give an overview with that, we have 7 titles, 60 competitive players, a streaming staff of 15. We do community things, like community programming monthly that brings in 200 to 300 students every month. And this is like sort of off the side of my desk so far. So like, that's just kind of the idea of, like, I don't know if everyone realizes just the explosive nature that this has, depending on what angle you want to take it. So one thing that I'm curious of, just, we sort of heard that there's a little bit of like interest in intramurals and whatever else, is why are you bringing it in, and what are you hoping to do with it? Like, that's my curiosity of other schools right now.
All right, how about you, Chad? I'll pick on people if no one volunteers.
I don't think there'll be any issue with that. I mean, I've been at Western for a month and a half now, so sort of just getting things figured out a bit here, but I think that's something we need to nail down, and we're sort of going through a strategic plan in the next 2 months to see where does that live, and do we shuffle our positions, because I would say probably for most of us, it landed on the side of our desk, whether during the pandemic or coming out of it, because we wanted to look at virtual programming. And I think you guys are a success story. I think there's some others on the call, but I think largely it's just not been given the focus and attention it deserves. And some of us I know spent a lot of time, and it's like, yeah, we got a handful of participants, or we just were pursuing it in the wrong way. So I think for us, that's what I was hoping to gain out of this call, or where I'd like to go, is how do we create a sustainable initiative, but what does that look like? Because it could very well be 2 different portfolios if you have a competitive aspect and more that student engagement, and they could complement each other a little bit, but the needs and demands of those groups are vastly different, even though you're running the same program. So for us, I think we just need to have more of a clear direction, but I agree with what you said, Adam. I think we get few opportunities in a lot of our areas to really make a innovative impact, and I think this is one of those ways that we can sort of leverage. So I think it'll be talking a lot with our student unions and yeah, whether we take those on, and it doesn't need to be mutually exclusive either. That's sort of another theme that I feel like let us do it or you guys do it. Whereas I think there's a lot of value in collaborating and making this a campus-wide initiative. And you're seeing a lot more campuses having esports management certificates or programs and stuff. So I think that's something that probably is going to come down the road with expanding from a campus perspective.
How about you, Megan?
I guess it's like hard right now, or I guess this past fall, I found it hard to dedicate as much time to esports with then on-campus programming starting back up. And then also the ever-changing, like the club that, like the esports club that kind of we partner with or try and work with to then offer different programming. They're not permitted to do anything in person, and we don't have space or anything that way. So I was wondering, do you guys have dedicated space on campus that then you'll run in-person events, or are they all still virtual?
Still virtual right now.
I would say the majority have been virtual. We have started bringing in some of our in-person, because there are a handful of games that don't have a great online platform, so that the players don't like to use the online platform. So for some of those, in the past 6 weeks or so is when we've started bringing them back in person.
It's not a dedicated facility though.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the conversation on our campus started. Was a few years ago, there was a PhD student that came in and said, you have to be doing esports, and to start with an esports arena of sorts with multiple desks and consoles and things like that, that just wasn't possible. But that's how we kind of snowballed down the line and started with the clubs and some recreational stuff. We went to St. Clair College in Windsor, and you may have heard about their program. They have a fairly well-established esports program with a lot of full-time staff and dedicated spaces and very competitive teams and
brand new facility too.
Right, recruiting and AFAs and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of where we started, and it's a goal of ours now to eventually get to the point of having dedicated spaces on campus for gaming, and then partnerships with the community. So we got lucky as well at the beginning of just kind of saying that we were running esports and that we had a program, and then being connected with our tourism director in Waterloo region, who wants to make Waterloo an esports hub in North America. So now they're trying to bring in consultants and utilize the region itself to bring in large international events and to partner with us as a university. So we kind of stumbled across some opportunities purely by saying like, hey, we're doing esports now, which I'm sure will happen at other institutions as soon as you say like, yes, esports lives here and here's a person that runs it. But yeah, anyway, moving on, I guess.
So sorry, Adam, I want to jump in for a second. So one thing that I would point out, like I've had this conversation quite a few times where people have felt intimidated that they need like an esport dedicated space before they can do any kind of programming. The easiest thing that we've done for our Smash group is we bought 6 gaming monitors. That's it, just monitors. And every single one of those players has consoles that they're willing to bring wherever they go. And it's a pretty easy setup to say, hey, I'm booking out this classroom or this space in your area and spending $2,000 or less and bringing them into your space. Because that's, not to go on a different tangent, but another reason why we wanted to bring esports into our portfolio is we've taken kind of a concentration of getting rid of that stigma that we've got a kid sitting in mom and dad's basement with the Cheeto covered fingers and drinking Mountain Dew till whatever time in the morning. And we've tried to say, okay, well, this is an opportunity to physically bring them into our space, people that may not have been in our space before. Introduce some nutritional programming, some of the other fitness programming that we tie in with our competitive players. And then also try to push that into our recreational side as well. But it doesn't need to be that big. Like you can start pretty small with just monitors and space.
I'm interested, Zachary, being a student, maybe you can provide some input for all of us from the student perspective and what you would like to see for yourself and your peers from an athletic department or from your partnership with athletics.
Yeah, sure. Kind of the biggest issue that I've noticed working through with esports this semester is that there's kind of this idea that, video games are video games. And if you like video games, if you like one, you'll like another one. But that's not necessarily true, right? That's like saying all sports are sports. And if you like basketball, you're going to be interested in volleyball. And that's not necessarily true. So kind of our problem that I've been facing is that we're limited to only like 8 tournaments per semester that we can run. And so we kind of have to pick and choose what games we want to run for that. And if someone who's really interested in Valorant, for example, they might only get 1 tournament a semester, and that's not really what they're looking for. If you really have a lot of players, you need kind of separate leagues for each game almost, but that's a lot of like commitment to that as well.
So are you a competitive gamer at all yourself?
Yeah, actually, so Greg just mentioned his university has a Smash Club. I'm actually the vice president of my university Smash Club. I've been going to Smash tournaments since like 2014. I've been doing it for a long time. And so I have a lot of experience.
Is there an appetite there with you and your peers that are more competitive and competing on behalf of the university? Or do you do that already?
We don't have we don't compete against other universities or anything yet. That is something I would be interested in doing in the future. But yeah, we don't have anything like that right now.
Okay. Again, I said this at the beginning that I wasn't sure how many people had registered or anything like that. And part of that was I didn't get any questions submitted from anybody else. So I'm wondering if there's questions any of you have that you'd like to bring up as a topic of conversation right now.
I'll maybe jump in. I think one of the things for me is wanting to look at how this is positioned or how you potentially sell this. So for example, during the pandemic, it shone a massive light on the types of offerings a lot of us do that are very traditional and in person, and that just stopped immediately. So I think obviously virtually this is something that could continue long term, but also, as Greg mentioned, like how do you get past that stigma? Because I'm still hearing that a little bit from our senior leadership, like why would we possibly do that when it's a very sedentary, and yeah, there's aspects of that, but it's more about the social connection and all those pieces. And I think another thing that's really come up is for those who have seen success in esports is we're catering to a very unique group of students. This is a massive generalization, but that don't often use our spaces in the ways we've traditionally offered our programs. So I think there's a huge opportunity outside of what a lot of us do, where we offer different sports within intramurals or we bring on a new club. This is a massive difference, and it's largely an untapped market. So I think it's something that can position ourselves a lot better from the student experience perspective, rather than just offering things that we've done year after year and just kind of rolling things over.
Yeah, we had that for sure at the beginning. There was the stigma that Greg had talked about, reluctance from upper management and others on the university, and defining how it tied into athletics and recreation. So that's why we started with the tie to well-being. We provided nutrition guides for our esport athletes and workout routines. We hired I don't know what Greg called him, but a PhD student that would check in on mental health and wellness for our players. So we tried to tie it to some of the things we advocate for within athletics and recreation. And as it started to gain traction, then it was other people within our own campus community that helped broaden it and make more sense for why it's a fit on a campus. Right now, we're working with a group that includes the director of housing with interest to build a community within housing and residence with physical spaces for recreational drop-in gaming. The vice president international, who is connecting us to other universities all around the world to set up international friendlies to, in his words, help create and maintain bonds with international partners to lead to better international recruitment of students on our campus. We have a games institute on our campus as well, and they're very interested in esport programming for research in various different ways, and professors. So we've got professors that we're working with that want to bring in components of esports into their academic curriculums. So event management and things of that nature. So just and it's all happened really quickly. Like it started with, okay, we're running these clubs and they're competitive. And then all of a sudden, all of these companies are contacting us all the time. Like I said, the tourism director from the region. And now a lot of these big influential people on our campus want to be a part of it as well, to the point where we're working on an overall esports strategic plan for the university, which we're kind of just a small part of in the recreational and competitive spot outside of academics and research and community. But that's why I think it was so great that we were able to start with it, and then it grew from us. So now we have the opportunity to sit at that table and to be advocates for esports and the community building that it has, and knowing that it's not the same as it was in 2010 with our traditional programming. We've got to evolve and adapt to what the students want. So to your point, Chad, it is hard to convince people, and we still have trouble convincing people that esports fits and belongs and it makes sense for what we do. But I think there's enough to tie it in. And for us, like I said, it's a huge opportunity. And if your name can be tied to the development of it within your department and on your campus, there's really, really positive things that can come from that.
Yeah, I'm going to kind of jump on sort of what Adam went with to answer your question as well, Chad, is health and wellness was a component that we had tied in for sure. But the biggest push to students as well, because some of them are like, well, why do we need you? It's like, why would they come to us if they can go online and play against literally anyone, anywhere, anytime on their own time? And it was the factor of community development. Every person that is on this call right now has 2 cohorts that haven't really been on their campus yet and don't really have an attachment to the university. This is your easy, low-hanging fruit to build that community and get those attachments and get people to meet others. So one of the biggest tools that we utilize is the Discord channel that we have for all kinds of players that just want to get in. Doesn't matter if they're involved, doesn't matter if they show up to any of our programming whatsoever. They're on a channel that they can talk to other university students about whatever. And that's that is the first main selling point that I'd say is you've got a pretty easy way to build community right off the bat without a ton of resources. So if anyone's looking for why would we even get involved with this? Even if it doesn't go beyond that, that's a pretty easy, huge thing that you can do.
For us to convince, go ahead, Allison.
The other thing I would add, when we started it a number of years ago, I had a student who was friends with somebody who'd won a World Halo Championship, and it all kind of started then. But one of the things, I had taken my students to a NIRSA conference, and they had come back and presented. So I'm part of a faculty. So they presented to the faculty leadership team why esports was essential and how it's going to be a part of kind of the world we live in moving forward. And we need to get on board or rethink why we're here. And it's a way to serve students. So that presentation that they did to our dean, our associate deans, our faculty administrator, and our athletic director was this is why it's important to us as students. And that went way further than anything I had tried to do for 2 years. So having them take that ownership and saying, and then they also proposed the games that they wanted to see play, which I've been fighting about getting them in. Something like Fortnite was a battle for 2 years, and now it's not an issue. And I basically been given carte blanche, use your, Zach and I kind of pick our games now. But it all stemmed from that presentation that they did, that I had I sat in the room, but that was literally all I was able to do. And it had such a big impact compared to anything I had tried at that point.
Yeah, for sure. And the games was another thing that we dealt with also at the beginning. It was very much okay, you can play Madden, NBA, it has to be a sports-based game. And that's what we tried. And the students weren't overly interested. And then as soon as it came out to League of Legends and Rocket League and those types of games, that's the community that we have on our campus, and the engagement exploded. And another thing, to sell to directors and higher ups within the athletic department, is it's a great branding opportunity. And especially once we get out to being able to compete in in-person events that are widely regarded, and multiple other universities there, branding yourself with, for us, the Warriors, and using the same brand as our varsity teams do, and what we're trying to get out there in our department. And then job creation for students. We've created so many staffing opportunities for students surrounding esports that wouldn't have had opportunities within our department because of where their interests lie in the past.
That's something I'm actually curious of, just throwing it out to the group. Yeah, I mean, you can just physically raise your hand because I don't know if there's a raise your hand thing in Zoom, but have any of you, do you have or have you explored Twitch at all? Okay, another super low hanging fruit right there. So we have a Twitch channel for our team. The club had started it initially and it was sort of running itself, not really. You will be blown away with the number of volunteers that you have in graphic design and shoutcasting and whatever else that want to volunteer and build their portfolio. Like we advocated, we've got some paid positions for that, but a Twitch channel is another great way. Like what Adam has said, it's free to have. It's an easy way to get your branding out there. For those unfamiliar with it, imagine that's just a streaming service, but you control it all yourself. That's where we've created a pretty large majority of our jobs for students as well, is utilizing that. And it also gives you opportunity to get sponsorship through anyone that you want to run commercials for. Like they will do some like ads based on your cookies that Twitch will run themselves. But there's opportunities for students to subscribe to your channel and make money that way, but also for like for us, Domino's and whoever else, if we want to run a local ad on our stream, we're able to do that and just give them more opportunity to have brand association.
Did anybody else have any questions or comments or things that they wanted to bring up for the group?
Do you guys charge to participate? Does anybody charge to play? Right now, we're offering it for free, and I know that's not something we'll be able to continue long term. But I'm just wondering what other schools do.
We do a $10 tryout fee at the start for our competitive teams, and that's it. Because one thing that I will tell you right now is the amount of tournaments that students can go take part in for free that have cash prizing or anything else out there. As soon as you start to charge, it's, unless you have some sort of wicked deal as to why they may want to take part, you might lose your audience pretty quickly.
How
Yeah,
are you
ours is
paying for
all-
your staffing positions then?
So we haven't really talked about this, but this is also a really good opportunity to engage alumni. So we have a handful of alumni that took part in our programming when they were just in clubs. They wanted to see the program grow. They've donated a lot of money back so that we can go from there. And we've had other companies, or I don't even know how many to list off now, but as soon as you start pushing your program, you will have companies come to you to push and try to give you money to develop.
Yeah, we've got some sponsorships. And like Greg said, we charged the $10 tryout fee and had a lot of people try out. So it put a lot of revenue in there as well. But honestly, in my position, even if we weren't generating any of that revenue, it would be worth an expense line to invest into it, because it is going to get so much bigger. I'd be willing to take a little bit of intramural revenue and reinvest it back into something like this. It's worth it.
And
Did you have something, Megan? Oh, sorry, Greg.
I was gonna say the other thing. So like the money that we're throwing at it, really, it's one stream per week. You need 3 to 4 staff members for approximately 3 hours, and then 3 staff members for one weekend once a month is basically what we end up doing. So I think our staffing costs for the entire, like the normal year for everyone, because Waterloo is on a co-op cycle and it's all kinds of messed up, but on a normal one, it's maybe six or 7 grand.
And so Greg, that's covered by kind of the donors and sponsors and what you get from that way.
Yeah, so donor sponsors, honestly, like the $10 we charged at the start of the term, I think it covered 3/4 of the budget line for this semester.
Yeah, I was gonna say we don't charge at all, but mind you, we don't use any other kind of outside platforms or anything that way. So there's no other expenses, and then it's, I guess, just the staff time to communicate to participants is, yeah, I guess is then just that time. But one other question I guess I had, and Allison and Zach, you guys kind of touched on it, that it's, how do you choose, like there's so many different games and different options, like how do you choose then which ones you are going to offer as a league or as a tournament? Like how did you initially find out where that interest lies in your student population?
Yes, I mean, honestly, it was going back to the club and try to figure out where are the biggest communities. So for us, without a doubt, we can't run a monthly tournament without offering some kind of League of Legends. Like we have, like most of our competitive groups, we have 2 teams, except for Overwatch because it's a dying game. But League of Legends, we have 3. We could probably have 7 if we chose to go that way. But I would say it's literally just going back to your student groups to figure out what is it that you want. Again, we utilize the Discord platform for this and looked at the raw numbers first and then put out some surveys to say, hey, which ones would you be more interested in? So like Adam was saying, we've got League of Legends, Overwatch, Valorant, and Rocket League are our main ones that we support competitively. And then one of the other things that we do is we offer a free, not as popular game with every monthly, because we want it to be like say Settlers Catan, something like that. Just an opportunity for someone that might be intimidated by esports but wants to get their foot in the door but doesn't have any other resources other than their computer. That's something else that we usually concentrate on tying into our monthlies. If that answers the question or if I just rambled.
Yeah, like the students are your place to start. They'll tell you, what they want to play and where the communities are.
Just to add to that,
I think. Go ahead, Zach.
I can add to that. You're gonna continue to struggle with which games, because we've been playing basketball for 100 years. We've been playing chess for 500 years. There are new games coming out every single year, and games are falling off when new games come out, and you're always gonna struggle with it. And it's not something you can pin down, like we're gonna play Valorant until the end of time. You might only be playing Valorant for the next 3 years, and then it's gonna be a dead game after that. It's hard to predict that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar, kind of reinventing itself. And a lot of these games have been around for so long. And I've also seen a bit of trend around games like Rocket League that are cross-platform. So you're not specifically having to play on a PlayStation or an Xbox or a PC. And you're starting to see a lot more titles that are becoming more cross-platform. There's always going to be exclusive titles, but I think that's, like Greg was saying, sort of a more low-hanging fruit to jump into that. And Rocket League's free to download, and you don't have to have an upfront investment as well. So those kind of things help.
And anybody else have any questions or discussion topics? Andrea?
Sorry, I feel really embarrassed now. I know what Twitch is. I know what Discord is. My own personal history with video games is like Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing. I'm very much a casual player. I've never done any like MMOs or anything like that. I don't know how to set up tournaments. I don't speak this language. And I'm just wondering, do you guys have any resources or know where I can find resources on how to even begin setting up stuff like this for our campus? Like, I feel like I'm literally in the dark trying to find the light switch here.
Honestly, the first thing that I will say that I've tried to pitch to so many different people that have worked in athletics and recreation for a long time, it's the exact same thing. Like it is the exact same as setting up a basketball, a volleyball, and anything else tournament. It's just in terms of how you want to do registration and how you set matchups. So similar to like what you'd want to do is like a beginner, intermediate, advanced basketball tournament. Everyone's got a rating on what their players are and what groups they should be competing against. So there are different platforms that you can utilize, but I would also say, again, it depends on the games that you're going to go after. So start with your students, figure out the games. They will tell you which ones they prefer in terms of like how they want to do tournament registration. I have a lot of back and forth with my students about what we can and can't do. But there are a lot of free resources that you can utilize, but it really depends on the game that you're going to go after.
Yeah, and I would say too, like when it came over to us, we were going to operate them just like another club. So the whole point was they were going to fit in Greg's club's portfolio and they were going to be another club. And because Greg was so invested in it, he learned quite a bit about esports, but he didn't always he didn't start from a point of knowing very much about it. And I still know absolutely nothing about it. So like from the actual standpoint of the Twitch and Discord and all the other intricacies. So I think a really good place to start also would just be to find a student, whether it's a volunteer position for like a student program coordinator, or if you did have a little bit of funds to pay somebody, just manage a student and have them run it for you.
Yeah, I am with you. I know what I learned about esports, I learned from my 10-year-old nephew, and he's like, okay, this, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And so when we posted, this is the first year we've really posted an esports dedicated position. I had another student who kind of did it a little bit because he was a gamer. And I had more applications for our esports position than any other position in intramurals. It's just that much more prevalent now. And so you can ask Zach, literally somebody will say something and I sit on the CCL and I make him sit in on those meetings so he can translate for me, because half the time I don't know what they're talking about. So he knows way more than I do. And so anytime a technical thing, I'm just like, Zach, I don't know. And so he gets that question a lot. Or if somebody brings something to me, I just send him to him. So I can give you Zach's information and he can help you out. Right, Zach?
Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
Awesome. Another point, just for our own selfishness a little bit, we're very invested in the idea of building the community across other institutions throughout Canada, because if we all grow this and if we all develop it together, then it makes the case that much bigger, to show people just how big and important this is to students, and creating those opportunities for inter-university leagues and events, and visiting other universities once things open up, having friendlies and matches against other universities across Canada, I think is really important to build the program at any of our institutions. So like I said, we're still at the very beginning of where we want this to go also, but we do have some resources and some student resources, and Greg has learned quite a bit over his development within this in the last 2 years, that we would be happy to have discussions with anybody to answer any questions, probably Greg rather than me, for better answers. But yeah, like we are really invested in doing everything we can at our institution, and it's only going to help us if other institutions start to grow with this as well.
I have a random question for the group too. Did anyone take part in the Esports competition that they held at the start of the year? No. Okay. I just haven't seen or heard anyone that has taken part in it, so I was curious with that.
I think there were 6 schools registered from what I saw. Some of them were colleges. Chad and I work, I don't know if Chad's still involved or not, but with the Canadian Collegiate Esports League, and they were starting it like 2 years ago, trying to get this together. So there's that opportunity. I know we just had a meeting last week that we're discussing about like the competitive side of it and creating the competitive clubs. I think right now the focus is really of that group is the recreation, but it is on the kind of the sites for next year to start working on that club side of things, so that there's a competitive club side as well. I know that's something that Zach and I are going to be talking about come January, is how do we develop that club side? So my question to you guys is, who picks your teams for your competitive clubs, but also like, so our club program is very unique across the country. We have a lot of funding for our kids. So are they just under esports, or does each club have their own like sports club registered with you guys?
So for us, we amalgamated most of them, so like each club still has a president as like a representative in the group, for our recreational side. For picking our teams, we have different levels that we have, like your bare minimum before you can compete to try out, depending on the sport. And then we've brought in some of our former coaches, alumni, a few community members to give us feedback on the gameplay, because there's the actual score that you're going to get, but there's the other small pieces that you're looking for, like communication, things of that nature. So we look at the general outcomes of the games and skill sets, and then at the end of it, we stream our top or like our quarterfinals up, and we do it like a tournament format, and mix and match teams, kind of like what you would do in physical sports as well, to go through a tryout process to see who meshes with who and go from there.
Thanks.
Okay, we only have 10 minutes left. Is anybody else have anything that they wanted to add? Make sure that everybody is being heard from and we cover off on everything that, you know, people were hoping to get out of this.
I
What's
think
your,
maybe, go ahead, Andrea.
sorry, I was just wondering what your Twitch channel is so I can check that out.
Greg?
I can pull it up. I don't know the URL off the top of my head, but I'll pull it up and put it in the chat.
While Greg's pulling that up, I'm just curious because we've talked a lot about like the CCEL, we've talked about the Ontario Post-Secondary Esports, OPSE, we're doing things siloed within our institutions. Like, I'm wondering what the best way going about, like you said, Adam, to build that community across Canada or within the NIRSA community in North America, and like how do you pick and choose where to, because I don't know if there's any exclusive nature to participating in one league and not another and those kind of things. I think that's sort of where a question I have, like, where do you start and what do you involve yourself with instead of just jumping into every single thing, or maybe that's the best idea moving forward. So
I don't think it has to be together, Chad. Like, it doesn't mean that we have to compete solely against one another or in the same leagues or anything like that. It's just the idea that multiple institutions are growing a program. So, and maybe that comes from more of an idea where a group of us get together to learn from each other and to find out what worked growing your program and what challenges you might have had or questions or where funding opportunities come from, whatever it is. It's just about actually taking the time at each institution to grow a program. And then that helps the overall acceptance of it, I think, across the board with, you know, a lot of traditional, you know, directors out there who see esports as not being in line with what it is that they do. And knowing that the student population now is very interested in esports, more so than, you know, they might have been when we were students and things of that nature. But like us, we compete in all kinds of different stuff. Like, our teams compete in a lot of like events south of the border, and things of that nature, but we would always have teams available to play you in a scrimmage at some point in time if you wanted to. But I think the community can be more about just helping to build programs as opposed to a league just for us or anything like that. Anybody else? Final thoughts or comments? Okay, well, thank you everybody for showing up and for spending some time with us. And it's something that we're really excited about and really interested in to kind of see where it goes. So any questions or comments or follow-ups or anything like that, please don't hesitate to reach out. And hopefully this can be the first of many conversations, and hopefully we can see each other at a future in-person NIRSA Canada event and maybe have another roundtable or discussion there. So thank you and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
I think you just hit
Now,
record again.
Well, if I hit stop recording, then how do I get a link to send it to somebody?
I think it'll send it